to the Who Dat Nation, and welcome to the Dome Patrol podcast, your podcast for the New Orleans Saints here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the preview of Sunday, October the 15th, Week 6 matchup between our New Orleans Saints and the Houston Texans in Houston at the NRG Stadium, 12 noon on Fox this Sunday. I can't wait for this matchup. The New Orleans Saints are fresh off of their, slacking, just straight mollywopping the poor little New England Patriots by the score of 34-0, bringing their record to 3-2. Whereas the Houston Texans are fresh off of a heartbreaking loss to the Atlanta Falcons, bringing their record to 2-3. This is going to be an interesting matchup for so many reasons that we're going to go over today. But first, let's put to bed our matchup from last week. Let me start off by saying I'm still happy with the victory, but it wasn't what I wanted. Well, let me rephrase that. Of course I wanted a victory. Of course, laying a goose egg on somebody is glorious, but it was Houston. I mean, not Houston. It was it was New England. New England is a bad football team. Let's be honest, people. The Saints did what they were supposed to do against an inferior opponent. They were supposed to run them off the field, which they did. Kudos for that. But, it's frustrating at the same time because you saw the potential. You see potential in this team being a dominant force that it is, yet and still, you also can sit back, and it's been a few days, you can sit back and say, oh, it could have been worse. The Saints could have done more damage to the Patriots. And look, I'm not saying run up the score on them. I'm not saying put 70 on them like the Dolphins did to poor old Sean Payton in the Denver Broncos. No, I'm not saying do all that. But, I mean, it just didn't look like the Saints. They're still missing something here. It still doesn't look like a cohesive unit. Offensively. Defensively, of course, yeah. They defense is on the ball. If you don't think the Saints defense is a top 5 defense in the league right now, you're sadly mistaken. That is a feared defense in the league, and they're on the same page. Offensively, man, it's just not coming together right. And look, there was improvement last week, as opposed to the first 3 weeks of should I say the first 4 weeks of the season. But it was an improvement. Week 5 looked good. And if you can bottle that up and bring it with you to Houston, hey, I'm all for it. But this isn't going to be as easy as it looks or sounds even. This is going to be a tough match. This isn't a gimme. So Saints need to be on their P's and Q's. Now, this is their second consecutive clash with an AFC opponent. As I said before, they played the New England Patriots. The New Orleans Saints, who are 3-2, will face the Houston Texans, who are 2-3, in Houston this Sunday. Coincidentally, the Saints have a 3-2 record against the Texans, with each team winning their home matchups. The Saints will be looking for their first win in Houston since the Texans entered the NFL as an expansion team in 2002. The Saints entered the contest 3-2 after shutting out the New England Patriots in Gillette Stadium this past Sunday, recording 3 takeaways that led to 17 points while not turning the ball over themselves. Tied for second place in the NFC South, they will be looking to improve to 4-2. Through 5 regular season games, the Saints have already tied their 2022 total in 7 interceptions. They had 7 interceptions all of last season. We are 5 weeks in, going into the 6th week of the season, and we're already at 7 interceptions. That is a monster improvement for for this organization. Uh, Safety Teron Matthews returned the interception for 27 yards for a touchdown, as well as linebacker Pete Warner recorded his first ever interception this past Sunday. The only team in the NFL to have 3 shutouts since 2021. Defensively, New Orleans is ranked 4th in the lead in opponent points per game, opponent net yards per game, and passing defense. The Houston Texans lost a heartbreaker to the Atlanta Falcons in week 5, falling by the score of 21-19 on the last second field goal. Texans quarterback rookie CJ Stroud orchestrated an 11-play, 75-yard drive late in the 4th quarter, ending it with a touchdown pass to put the Texans up 19-18 with 1 minute and 49 seconds remaining in the game, which was proven to be too much time left on the clock. But he did orchestrate that drive. Stroud was 20 of 35 passing, 249 yards, and a touchdown, continuing his streak of 5 games, get this, without an interception. And he has yet to throw a pick in a game since he's been in the league, in extending his NFL record for most pass attempts to start a career without an interception, which was 186. Houston's offensive line has kept their rookie quarterback upright the past 3 games, extending the longest sackless streak in Texan history. We remember, I want to say, when they the first year the Houston Texans came into existence, coincidentally, their quarterback was David Carr, the older brother of current Saints quarterback Derek Carr, and he got mollywopped. he didn't have an offensive line, period. And y'all remember, if you remember the commercials leading up to the draft the following year, and Derek Carr was on the field, and all he had was a center hiking him the ball with nobody else on the offensive line, and the announcer said, "Well, what does your team need for the draft?" You know, because they didn't have an offensive line at all. They killed David Carr, poor fella. I like David Carr. I like Derek Carr, but yeah, they never had success protecting their quarterbacks. I mean, go through the list, man. I mean, Deshaun Watson, all of them, you know, and for some strange reason, they've gotten it together with this with this young fella. And look, CJ Stroud is a awesome quarterback. I enjoyed watching him in college. I knew that was a good pickup for the Texans. He's proven that he belongs in this league so far early on. I don't know what the future may hold, but as it stands right now, he belongs in the league. As far as the history between these two teams matching up against each other, the Saints and the Texans have played 5 times in the regular season, with New Orleans leading 3-2, as I said earlier. And, normally it's the home team that wins. And so going by that logic, it doesn't look good for the Saints. But the club first met in September of 2003 in the Superdome, where the Saints beat the Texans 31-10. New Orleans' last regular season trip to Houston was an embarrassing one, to say the least, where the Saints were defeated by the Texans 24-6 in November of 2015. The Saints will be looking for the first win in Houston this Sunday. The two teams last met in the regular season in week 1 of 2019 on Monday Night Football in the Dome, when the Saints claimed a 30-28 victory as Drew Brees led a furious fourth quarter game-winning drive, and then kicker Will Lutz kicked the game-winning field goal as time expired. I remember that game fondly because, ooh boy, that was that was so tense. And I think Deshaun Watson was the quarterback of the Texans then, and yeah, it was Monday Night Football. You had J.J. Watt, all that. It was a good game, but it shouldn't have came down to that kick. I mean, it was a battle, bro. But these teams always give a good game, believe it or not. So let's see how this turns out this Sunday in Houston. Hopefully, the Saints can, you know, beat the streak. Maybe that would be nice, and actually win an away game against the Texans. Let's go over our injury report for this Sunday's game. This injury report was released on Friday, and this is pretty much what we're rolling with going into this Sunday, and it's bad for the Saints. I mean, these aren't, you know, big names, but my God, man, there's a lot of people out. The Saints have 5 players who are designated as out for this Sunday's game. Safety, J.T. Gray, cornerback, Lonnie Johnson Jr., fullback, Adam Patience, offensive tackle, Landon Young, and tight end, Jawan Johnson, all designated out for this Sunday's game. Jawan Johnson is worrisome. He hasn't played this season. I think he only played like 1 series this season, man. I don't know how severe. Was it a hamstring? I don't know what it was, but man, he just can't get on the field. I don't know what's wrong, man. This is scary. It's concerning. For the Houston Texans, it's not as severe, but they do have some question marks. Noah Brown, their wide receiver, is on IR. They have 3 players who are questionable for this Sunday's games. Wide receiver Robert Woods, wide receiver Tank Dell, and linebacker Christian Harris are questionable for Sunday's matchup. Going over the stats, let's start with the season leaders so far. In the category of passing, we have for New Orleans, Derek Carr. He is 98 for 150 pass attempts, 946 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. For the Houston Texans, their leading passers, of course, their rookie quarterback, C.J. Stroud, 114 for 186, 1,464 yards passing, and 7 touchdowns. And I'm still mind blown with this. 0 interceptions. Leading rushers of the Houston Texans and New Orleans Saints, starting with the Saints, of course, is Alvin Kamara with 33 carries, 131 yards, and a touchdown. For the Houston Texans, we have Pierce, 84 carries, 247 yards, and a touchdown. Now, before I go any further, I just want to say this. I need y'all to realize something. We're in week 6. We're going into week 6. This is through 5 weeks here. And Alvin Kamara is our leading rusher. The reason I want to touch in on that, Alvin Kamara didn't play the first 3 games. Now, you can say that Alvin Kamara has been running the ball like crazy for these past 2 weeks, but no, he hasn't. It isn't like he's putting up monster numbers. I just told you, in 2 games, he has 131 yards, and he's the leading rusher on the team. Put that in perspective, people. Anyways, our leading receiver is Chris Olave with 25 receptions, 318 yards, and 1 touchdown, which he caught last week against the Patriots. For the Houston Texans, their leading receiver is Collins with 25 receptions, 467 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Let me go over the defense right quick, because I've been leaving them out the last few weeks, and I don't know why, but I just kind of missed them. But our top defensive players, starting with our leading tackler. Our leading tackler is Pete Warner. He has 20 tackles this season thus far. Coming in second is Demario Davis with 19. Our sack leader is Carl Granderson with 3.2 sacks so far this season. Coming in second, our rookie Brian Breesy with 1.5 sacks this season. Interceptions, we have a lot of players with one. Paulson Adebo, Lonnie Johnson, Marshawn Lattimore, Tyrann Matthew, Pete Warner. Everybody has one. Nobody has multiple. They've been spreading it around as far as interceptions is concerned. Team stats, total yardage, the Saints averaged 310.8 yards a game to the Texans 376 yards per game. Passing wise, Saints averaged 213.6 to the Texans 293.4. Yards rushing per game, Saints averaged 97.2 to the Texans 82.6. Yards allowed, Saints allowed 289.2 per game to the Texans 345.8. Breaking down the Saints statistically, total first downs, Saints have 86 total first downs. To break that down, that's 27 by rushing, 52 by passing, and 7 by penalty. Their opponents have gained 80 first downs. That's 21 by rushing, 46 by passing, and 13 by penalty. That is, that's not a good number. On third down conversions, the Saints are 28 of 75. Also not a good number. As far as the opponents are concerned, on third downs, they are 23 of 73. On fourth down conversions, the Saints, pretty good number, 2 of 3. The opponents, 2 of 6. Total offensive yards, the Saints totaled so far through 5 weeks, 1,445 yards. Opponents' total yards, 1,373. Total sacks, Saints have 17 total sacks this season so far. Their opponents have sacked the Saints 11 times. Field goals, Blake Grupe is 11 for 12. We all know that one he missed in Green Bay. Saints have scored 9 touchdowns so far this season. Their opponents only scored 6. Turnover ratio, Saints are a +3. As I said before, this isn't going to be an easy game, but this is a winnable game for the New Orleans Saints. This is a team, the Houston Texans, that is, they are a scrappy team. D'Amico Ryans is an awesome coach, and I liked him when he was the defensive coordinator for the 49ers, and him taking that job in Houston is only a good thing. And he really got those guys playing. You know what I'm saying? They're ahead of schedule, if you want to be honest with you. Sitting there 2 and 3, they're ahead of the schedule. They look good. They've been in every game, and they're scary. They're scary moving forward. But thank God they're in the AFC. We don't have to contend with them that often, but we do have to contend with them this Sunday. And CJ Stroud, he doesn't make mistakes, as you could tell by his stats. He is smart. You know, he's mobile, but he's not a running quarterback. He's not Lamar Jackson or nothing like that. He moves, to create throwing lanes for himself. He's that type of quarterback. He's very slippery. That's why he's not sacked as often as other quarterbacks around the league. He'll get out the way and get rid of the ball if need be. And so it's going to be a test. I am what's the word I'm looking for here? Optimistic. I'm not willing to go out on a limb and say the Saints will win this game, but my heart is telling me they will win. But I think it's going to be one of those tightly contested matchups. And honestly, I'm still looking for consistency. And that was basically what I was getting at earlier when I was opening the show, discussing last week's blowout against the Patriots, which was awesome. Once again, want to keep banging on that, but I need to see consistency from this team, something I haven't seen in a while. Now they've been consistently bad. I can see I've seen games when they're back to back horrible performances, but back to back good performances, haven't seen that in a while. And so until I see that, I won't have crazy over the moon expectations for this team. I know what they're capable of, but do they know what they're capable of? And so that's the question moving forward, and that is definitely the question in this game because we have a stretch here. I mentioned it last week when we went over the victory on Sunday that we're in a little stretch here where it looked like this was going to be the easy part of the schedule for the New Orleans Saints. That's really kind of tough for the Saints. I mean, Houston, that's going to be a tough matchup. It's going to be a physical game. And then we have a short week because Thursday night, we're back in the dome to play the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are a playoff team from last year. They won the division last year, I believe, and they look pretty decent thus far this year. So it's not going to be an easy out there. And then I think we have the Colts after that. And they're looking better than expected. So it's not easy. It's not going to be easy for the Saints. So we got to take advantage of these opportunities. And that's not to look past the Houston Texans. But the Houston Texans, just like the New England Patriots, are inferior to the Saints. On paper. On paper, the Saints should come out victorious. I don't expect a blowout. That will not happen against these Texans. I got a lot of respect for this coach and for this quarterback, this young quarterback. In his sixth game, I still have a lot of respect for him. And I don't think they're going to sit back and let the Saints just mollywop them like that. Now, the big thing is, can we get a turnover on this team that doesn't turn the ball over like talking about it? That's going to be the deciding factor because that's the thing that fuels this Saints team. I've come to that realization. If the defense can turn the ball over, the Saints are just unstoppable at that point because either we get a pick six or we're in scoring position after the turnover to whereas we can score again and we put the pressure on the opposing team's offense, and that's when our defense can just pin their ears back and go bananas on them. So that's going to be the key. Getting pressure on CJ Stroud, making him uncomfortable, hopefully get a turnover and change the direction of this game. Offensively, the New Orleans Saints needs to stick with what's working, and what's working is the run game. Last week, the run game was top notch. I was really impressed with the way they moved the ball, even though we was working on short fields for the most part. But it still was called pretty good by Pete Carmichael, who was seconds away from getting put on my hit list. And so he bought himself another week. Hopefully he can dig himself out of this hole, which is my list. And he doesn't want to be on my list because I cannot take incompetence. And especially when you're getting paid the way you get paid in the NFL. Nah, bro, do your job. Do your job. So we'll see going forward, man. I'm excited for this game. I'm actually happy, unlike last week, and I wasn't happy. And we got the win, and I was so unhappy that we blew out a team, and I didn't care. That's how unhappy I was. The Saints really just sucked the soul out of me with that Tampa Bay game. I ain't lying. That was just. I'm still not over it, as you can tell. I'm still not over that game. Yeah, boy, that's embarrassing. But anywho's, I have the Saints winning this game. I don't have a score. I'm not going to give a score, but I think the Saints will win by a touchdown. But what do I know? I had us winning big over Tampa, and look what happened. So we shall see this Sunday in Houston, the Saints versus the Texans. I would like to know, what do you think the outcome of this game will be? Do you think the Saints can rattle off 2 in a row? Do you expect a performance like last week, or do you think this is going to be a defensive battle? I would love to know. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. Look me up on all social media platforms. Just look up the KB Radio Network. Don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video, please. Also, don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the Dome Patrol here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this preview of Saints versus Texans. Can't wait to speak to you after Sunday's game when we recap another Saints victory. Until then, everybody, I'm going to be screaming all weekend, "Who dat?"